I want to know, what is your overall kind of overlook of the altcoin market right now?
So how I think about it is, when you start a bull market, you own Bitcoin, then you start overweighting ETH. And then what happens is everything that's riskier starts going up more. So these are things that are earlier in their adoption cycle. And then the super risky stuff like NFTs. So that's how bull markets always work. So what I did is I said, listen, I'm going to own some Bitcoin and some ETH. And I, over time, have moved more of my allocation to ETH. But I bought a basket of stuff. I said, I don't know whether Polkadot, Cardano, Solana, whatever's going to outperform. So I just did a basket equally weighted. And then I've been watching it. And so it's done really well. I put it on the beginning of the year. It's up, I don't know, 150% or so. And now I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to start concentrating the bets in the ones that I think in this last quarter, where I think the big bull market lies, those outperformers are the ones you really want to back. So that's kind of how I've been thinking about it. I did the idiots portfolio first, which is like, I don't know, because it's hard to know what's, it's hard to know. So that was the idiot's way. Then I start looking at seeing, okay, what's getting adopted.
What is your thought about Cardano from, a functional standpoint and also a price standpoint?
So, we've had Charles Hoskinson a few times on Real Vision. I like the project. I think it's very interesting. We really need to see more network adoption.
Yeah.
So it's early stage for me still. So, the price is going up. It's doing well. There's a big community behind it. So that gives you one side of the network. We need to see more use cases outside of the Ethiopia case that's being talked about a lot. So, I own some, and I'm just waiting to see, really, is it going to start getting a lot of traction, people building stuff on it? I know people are waiting for the smart contract side. So, maybe it's not the biggest outperformer in this cycle. But, if it survives this cycle and continues to get adoption, it'll probably do very well in the next cycle.
Yeah. So very interesting. You've had Charles on a few times. I've had Charles on a couple of times on my channel as well. I love Charles. I feel like he's somebody that he's a straight shooter, and you always get his real opinion on things, which, I love. There's a lot of people out there that aren't like that. You got to kind of dice their words and find out what they're getting at. But with him, he's straight up. And I think that you make a really good point about the ecosystem not being there yet, because it doesn't really exist yet. I mean, we've got placeholders for DEXs and, exchanges and wallets. We have placeholders, but they're not on the Cardano network yet, because the Cardano network doesn't have smart contracts yet. But what I would say on that is very interesting. If we were to go back to 2017 and we were to look at Ethereum, it would look the exact same way. I mean, it wasn't until late 2017 when, we had ERC20s at least around mid 2017, I believe, maybe a little bit before that. But, it wasn't until 2018 that we really started seeing dApps, and we really started seeing, decentralized exchanges. They didn't really start popping up until 2019. So is there not like a little buyer, do you think people could be in for buyer's remorse, really? I mean, because certainly, like, you probably wish you had bought Ethereum in 2017 or, 2016. Isn't actually not having a big ecosystem yet and still having the hype and excitement for Cardano, don't you think that could actually be a good thing?
Which is why I own it.
Yeah.
It's exactly that reason. Is I own it because there's a lot of investors in it. And if the ecosystem builds out, it's going to do incredibly well. And as you say, maybe it rallies into that, as, everyone knows smart contracts is the issue. Yeah. So that's everybody knows. So therefore, when smart contracts come out, it's kind of like, okay, well, that's what we've been waiting for. We know it's coming. It's like the ETH 2.0. We know it's coming.
Yeah.
There's too many smart people working on it for it not to happen. So yeah, I agree. I think you're right. It probably goes up significantly into that event.
Let's fast forward. I want to talk about XRP. Do you have any thoughts on first the lawsuit and what maybe that has, what effect that can have on crypto in general? And then, what do you see for XRP?
Unfortunately, I think we totally agree with each other. XRP is a great risk reward, right? The lawsuit, we've seen every lawsuit, every single one has been a fine.
Everyone.
Slap on the wrist, because everybody's actually cleared up after the event anyway. And these were events were a while ago, BitMEX, that's happening. We're going to see all of this. So I think it's going to be a slap on the wrist, that it could have looked like a security. There'll be no admission of guilt on either side. There'll be a payment of a fine, and then XRP is free to run. What's interesting about XRP is there is quite a lot of use cases. Now, I know a bunch of Bitcoin people hate it. It's not decentralized enough. I don't care. It's, are people using it? Yes. A lot more than most people realize. And what's amazing about this setup is you can't buy us on any of the exchanges. And it's not in the Bitwise ETF. The Bitwise ETF is now $1 billion. The Bitwise index is, the top 10 index is $1 billion. So the moment XRP is freed, they have to buy a few $100 million of it, as everybody else can, because the exchanges will have it back. So you're setting up for a hell of a nice run if this clears up. Worst case, it doesn't. Worst case is, let's say 50% downside. Best case is 10x from here. So I'll take a 50-to-1 risk reward for the next 3 to 6 months.
So let's talk about Solana though. Solana has just been massive run. 2 different pumps, had a 90% pump a couple of weeks ago, and now just had a 60% pump in the last few days. I mean, that's peak altcoin season numbers right there. But it'll be kind of across the board. For Solana, this thing has just been ripping. What are your thoughts on Solana right now?
Solana, I think, is I wrote an article about this weekend. I've been looking at it, wasn't sure what to do with it. And then I think it's the ETH of this cycle. Remember the ETH of the last, ETH was the one that became the big new thing. I think it's this, because the pedigree of all the people involved in it, the speed of adoption is ridiculous. I mean, it's growing faster than ETH did at that point in the cycle. The number of application, the ecosystem it's like somebody just sent me a chart of the ecosystem. There's like 300 people already working with Solana. It's like, okay, this is real. And this is happening at a speed none of us can get our heads around. It's kind of like everybody wanted Cardano to happen. Is that actually happening in Solana right now? As you say, doesn't mean Cardano doesn't over time, but Solana looks like it's going to win this, this cycle as being the standout coin that becomes a major.
So what other coins, what coins could we be looking at, do you think, that could be the next Solana or the next Cardano or any other coins
I've kind of like, I own a bunch of DeFi stuff and I'm not that interested in it. It'll go up, and it's interesting because, it's great. They're disrupting the financial system, but I've been in the finance system for 30 years. So I don't really want to invest in another new finance system. So really what I've got interested in is community token. That I think is going to be the big one. And I don't think it's going to be the big one for this cycle. I think it's going to be the thing, look back in 5 years time and go, oh my God, there was zero chance you will not tokenize your community. There's zero chance Real Vision will not tokenize. There's zero chance Disney will not tokenize its franchises, and maybe Disney itself. Facebook is already tokenizing via. So right now there's only 1 or 2 platforms to buy, and one of them is Rally. The other one is Chili's, which is tokenizing soccer clubs and sports teams. So there's not actually much there. So if you want to express your view, those are the platforms. We'll get more over time as other people. Flow is probably another one. The Dapper Labs product, Flow. So that's where I really think you can find bargains. I mean, Rally's $150 million. If communities really start going, some of these communities are, what's the community of Disney worth? I mean,
insane to think about.
Maybe $100 billion. What's Rally worth then? 150 million.
Do the math.
So some of this will be straight on different protocols. Some of them will be on this. So those are my kind of smaller tips on the side.